Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video I'll be taking another look at fitting a Lifan 125 engine into a Honda CT110 frame. I say take another look because I did a video on this two and a half years ago. Since I made that video I've had a rethink and I've come up with a better design for a rear engine mounting. I'll show you that, and also we'll have a look at some of the problems you'll face when you try and fit one of these 125 Lifans into your Honda frame, the problems you'll encounter and what I've done to get around them. Now, if that's something you're interested in seeing, as usual, stick around. I'll get straight into it. Well, the first question is, does the Lifan 125 fit into the Honda frame? Well, no it doesn't. But can it be made to fit? Yes it can. Well, your new engine's arrived, you've unboxed it, righto. Let's put it into your frame. Well, no, hold your horses. First things first, this top engine mount on the Lifan, the mounting bolt is M8, 8mm diameter, but the Honda engine mount is at M10, 10mm diameter, so you will need to drill this hole, drill it out to accommodate the Honda mounting bolt. So not 10mm, slightly bigger than 10, to accommodate the mounting bolt. It is easy to drill, the aluminium is really soft. If you want to have a look how to do that, have a look at my earlier video, I show it on that. So now let's put the engine in, right? Well, now hold your horses again, because on the Lifan the width of this mounting is narrower than on the Honda engine, so you will need to put a spacer on this left side to take up the gap. If you buy one of those adapter kits off the internet, I believe a spacer's in that. What I've done, I've just used a couple of washers. If you want to know the difference, you can either measure your original Honda engine or measure the width of the inside of the frame. I think it's about 5 or 6mm, I forget the exact measurement. And what I've done, because it's tricky trying to hold the washers in place while you fit the engine, I've put them in there with just the briefest, the smallest of tack welds, just to hold them in place. And if in future I want to fit a Honda engine, that tack weld can be easily ground off and the washers removed. So let's put the engine in place and have a look what problems we'll face next. Well, that's the engine loosely held in the front mounting, and then the first thing you'll notice, the contours of the frame don't match the contours of the engine, and the rear mount is a long way off, long way off from fitting. So as you can see there, distance from there to there. What I originally did on my previous video, I thought of using a plate from there to there, inside, bolted in there. But what I found with that, I had to remove so much material from the engine to try and get the room for the plate and the head of the bolt or the nut on the other side to fit. It was just a bad idea. So I decided to come up with another idea that's strong, simple, easy to fit, and you don't need to remove any metal from the engine, and that's what I did. Also, the next thing you'll notice, the engine is shallower, is that right? The engine is not as deep that way. The footrests don't line up, and if you do get them to line up, if you drill out the holes, and these Lifans don't have a cutout there to allow the footrest to fit, and because the engine is higher there, the footrest will be higher under your chin. In the adapter kit that you buy, there's a bag of bolts and washers and spacers, the plate to lower that down, but then you'll find that the brake pedal's wrong, so it's one thing after another. And to overcome the footrest problem, what I'll do is simply use the pit bike footrests. And because they are straight across there, they will be slightly lower, but that's offset by the fact that the engine is shallower up there as well, so it's not as bad as you think, and the brake pedal will fit fine. Now this is the rear mount that I've designed and made. Using the rear frame mount there, this bolts to the bottom of the engine. Solid, easy to fit. What I'll do, I'll turn the bike upside down so you can more easily see how the rear mount fits and how it all goes together. First thing I'll do, I'll just lay that sump guard close there, and I've just had to drill these two holes, one there and one there, to accommodate the different widths there. And then I will need to put these pit bike footrests, and as you notice, the only difference with this is there's no footrests on this left side on this pit bike footrest, but the postie bike has a side stand kickstand on either side, so I can do without a left side kickstand. So that will fit like that. Then my rear mount will fit through, and then the mounting bolt like that. And I need to lift the engine, tilt it back and get some of the bolts in place. See how I go. So then that will go in there. It's a bit awkward with the camera in the way. That will go in there. And this bracket is stepped to accommodate the width of this plate there. How I made that bracket, it's simply the bottom of the frame from the pit bike chopped off, and then I've made some extra straps across there and the tube across and welded it all together. So this should fit just underneath there. Final two bolts should go in place. Now it's a matter of putting the nut and washer on there, tightening all these up. Well, that's the engine bolted in place, and I think you'll agree that mount that I came up with is a much cleaner, simpler and stronger design. It looks really good, uncluttered underneath. I better hurry up, because although it's been a beautiful sunny day today, 32 degrees C, can you hear the thunder in the background? So there's an electrical storm on its way. So let's keep moving on. Next thing I'll do, I'll connect up the rear brake pedal. That's the rear brake rod connected up, and as you can see, the pedal fits fine. No need to bend it or mess around with it in any way. Good angle for your foot to fit on. So the pit bike footrest, although they will be slightly lower, that's offset by sitting higher up in the engine anyway. So all in all, much better than having footrests right underneath your chin. Next thing, while we're on this side, the exhaust. Now the first thing you'll need to decide, are you going to fit the standard Honda exhaust, or are you going to go with a pit bike exhaust? Personally, I want the bike to look as original as possible, so I'm going to use the original Honda exhaust, even though it is slightly smaller in diameter on the header. You may lose a little bit of power. That's not important to me. I'm more concerned with the bike looking original. The standard Honda muffler exhaust will fit onto the bike. The mountings line up, but the difference is where the exhaust stub fits into the cylinder head. If we have a look on this pit bike exhaust and compare that to the CT110 exhaust, you can see the difference. And what will happen is this flange will bottom out against the cylinder head before this exhaust has been clamped in there. One way around that is to fit 3 gaskets, exhaust gaskets, inside the cylinder head. But what I decided to do, I simply welded this spacer on there so that when the exhaust is pulled up by the flange there, it's the same thickness as this one. So it clamps the exhaust in there perfectly. That's the exhaust bolted into place. I don't know if you can hear now, the wind's picking up, the storm's on its way, so I better be quick. And there is a gap there between the flange and the cylinder head. Let's have a closer look. So the exhaust is clamped in the cylinder head fine. Let's go around to the other side. The next problem you'll encounter, the carburetor. Well, as you can see, the standard Honda OEM K-Hing carburetor with the original inlet will fit on there. You can remove the cap there, there's a gap. I'm not sure if you use the rear mount with the straps whether the engine is at a slightly different angle and makes it difficult, but with my rear mount that fits on there, and it's not too much of a challenge to bend the inlet trunk and make the airbox fit on just there. But if you're chasing performance, what will you do then? Well, this is a knockoff Mikuni or Chikuni if you wish. I think it's 22mm, I can't remember. And what you'll find with the inlet trunks on the Lifan, they're the same length but they're higher. The Honda one is more of a shallower curve there, and it will foul the frame there. What I've done with this one, I've put 2 insulators in there to act as a spacer so that the top of the carb clears the frame. What some people do, you can buy one of these inlets with various holes in there to give you some adjustability, if that's a real word. You can also get one of those spinners. I bought one of those spinners and it was useless. The holes were drilled at such an angle that when you tried to bolt one down, the spinner was stuck up in the air. And also the spinner will add that extra depth, so that will hit on there even more, make things worse. Some people will put the spinner on and point the carburetor forwards. What I've done with it, I've slotted these holes in there. They're only a few millimetres, not quite half of a hole out. So I slotted the hole, the inlet fits fine. With the extra insulator there, the carb fits in place. Because these carbs don't have the fuel tap, the petcock there, you will need to fit a petcock and on-off valve into the fuel line somewhere and figure out how to get the reserve to work. Or if you're chasing performance on one of these bikes, that will be something that you can easily manage. Personally, what I think I would do is put the OEM carburetor on there and the OEM standard 110 exhaust and see how the engine runs, see what the performance is like. Well, the engine's bolted in place, the carburetor's on, the exhaust's on, you're home and hose, right? Oh, no, not quite. As I said before, Lifan will fight you every step of the way. Next problem is the standard Honda CT110 sprocket won't fit onto the Lifan. Let's have a closer look and I'll show you what I mean. Here we have the 2 sprockets. This is the 425 sprocket that the Lifan comes with. What that means is that's to accommodate a 425 chain. The CT110 accommodates a 428 chain. So the 428, there we go. So the pitch is the same, but it's the width. So if you can look at the left hand side, the CT110 sprocket is much wider, much chunkier, much more able to accept the extra power of a 125 compared to a 110. So it seems to me a backward move to have a more powerful engine with a weaker sprocket. But what else is the difference? Well, if you look in the centre there, the spline is deeper, and so I forget the exact numbers. Is it 16 to 17 or 15 to 16? But anyway, what you need to do to get the 428 sprocket to fit onto a Lifan, you need to grind out the inside there by 1mm, which is 1mm diameter, means half a millimetre off each of these splines there. I did it with a Dremel. Let's have a look how that worked out. So what I've done there, I've got an old sprocket just to prove that it will work. So let's show you exactly what I mean on the engine. Here we have the 16 tooth 425 sprocket. That's what originally came on the Lifan. And here we have the 428 CT110 sprocket. And as you can see, won't fit on the spline. So here we have the one where I use the Dremel to round out the centre, and the sprocket will fit on there. And there we have the 428 sprocket fitted to the Lifan engine. Next thing, chain guard. That's the chain guard bolted in place, but one thing you'll notice, the Lifan engine is a different shape here, so you'll have this big gap between the chain and the sprockets. A bit dangerous, someone could get the fingers or toes in there. So what I've done, using this mount there, just a black plate in there, shaped it, and so when the side cover is on there, that will fit along there, fill in the gap. I think it looks quite good. Last thing, gear shift lever. Well, I've been lucky with the storm so far. It seems to have gone round me, but I can hear the thunder in the distance. I was rushing in case I got wet through. But now back to the gear change. I think this is a bad design on these bikes, where how far that sticks out. It's not supported. Ideally it should have something closer to the end there. And because, as you can see on this engine, this spindle there is bent, and no wonder. The OEM Honda heel and toe shifter won't fit on there. You can cut the back piece off, I suppose. But what I will use, this is the one off the pit bike, that will fit on there, something like that. But what I've found is, this is right where your foot, the wide part of your foot, needs to be. It's not ideal, but it's the best so far. Well, that's the bolting and tight, and just to be extra awkward, the bolt fits from the bottom upwards. Thank you, never ends. That's the engine in place, bolted in. I think it looks reasonably good. I hate how there seems to be a gap next to the frame there, but the engine is almost touching the frame on the other side, so that's as far back as it will go. I think the mount that I made is a success. It's strong, uncluttered. There's not all that bags of nuts and bolts and washers and plates underneath the engine. Footrests are okay, brake pedal, gear lever, not too bad, chain line's good, and obviously the carburetor and the exhaust are in place. Well, this is obviously an old scrap engine and an old scrap frame that I've been using. Why have I been messing around like this? Well, it's to show that I saw the engines advertised as fitting a 110, and that's not the case. I wanted people to see that if they do buy one of these engines, they'll know what they're up against if they try and fit it into their 110 frame. I've got a Honda 110 that I bought that didn't have an engine, so I wanted to see what was necessary to fit one of these engines if I'd choose to buy a new Lifan to fit in that bike, or shall I rebuild another Honda engine that I've got. Obviously the Lifan is a much cheaper option, maybe I'll go that way. If you get some value out of these videos, hit the subscribe button, help the channel to grow. You won't miss out on any upcoming future content. Thanks for everyone who supports the channel, much appreciated, and I'll see you again soon in the next video.